They might talk about humor, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sport, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
Hello, and welcome to this special bonus episode of Life with Brian. And instead of us all sat at home recording remotely with a special guest, we decamped to Drogheda in Ireland to do a show as part of a charity event called Talkin Balls. Joining Brian on stage back on the 30th of April to talk football of both the association and Gaelic varieties was Tyrone GAA legend and three-time All-Ireland Senior Championship winner Sean Kavanagh. We had a great evening kicking the event off, so we thought we'd share it. Enjoy!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to McHugh's for the Talking Balls fundraiser in aid of the Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust. It's great to see you all here. Thank you for coming. My name's Mark.
And I'm Matthew, and I don't know quite how to follow that, really, because we've had all the introductions and, we've been told how great these guys are, but we will give them a formal introduction to kick your night off. We've got a couple of sporting legends here, as you've heard. Apparently the best-looking man in Tyrone, although Nolan might disagree with that. Sean Kavanagh, everybody. And to his left is a man who has won multiple trophies for United and Celtic, but he was also the man I once said that if I won the National Lottery, I would buy him and just have him around my house because I loved him so much. And now, all these years on, basically I've saved myself about £3 million. It's Brian McClare. So welcome, gentlemen. Brian, I'm thinking you've been to this part of the world before. One game particularly sticks in my memory. Dundalk, Manchester United, 1994, something of a 6-goal thriller. I was going to ask how many people were there that day. Obviously, there's one here. Do you remember much about that night?
I have no memory of that game whatsoever. However, I am going to have lots of wonderful memories of this evening. If somebody had told me that Kelly was going to be so amusing and so entertaining, I wouldn't have fucking come. Because there's no way that any of us here can be any better than that. I love coming to Ireland. I love coming to Ireland. There's always something that's a little thing that you go, well, this could only happen in Ireland. And I didn't realise that Ronan had this nickname, Rasher or Brasher, or something to do with pigs. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I didn't realise that was his thing. But however, I had the pleasure of listening to him trying to guide his hopefully lovely girlfriend Fiona from Derry to here. And he was telling her, when I was listening on the telephone, you'll come into the village and you'll see a red pub. And we were listening, and then he named the pub the Glide Inn. And I've only been there for 10 minutes. It's not red, it's blue. And I said to him, when he finished his conversation, I says, look, the pub's blue. What pub? I says, the Glide Inn is blue. And he gets a picture out and goes, no, look, see those bricks there? They're red. So for me, this is memory of no matter what the biggest colour is, you pick the smallest colour. When you're trying to impress your new girlfriend, and to find where you are. So the fact that Fiona is here is a miracle.
Well, that stolen my thunder somewhat, because I was going to ask you about travelling over here as a United player back in the good old days, before clubs, Premier League clubs, First Division clubs used to go around the world to America and China or wherever they go now. You must have played over here and had some great times, and probably a few stories as well.
Yeah, we always had good times, because all the way around Ireland, there's a certain amount of English clubs that are favourites. So there was always great support everywhere you went, and I've always enjoyed that at the time and since then. That no matter what the agenda is, and you're told what the agenda is and where you're going to happen, actually there's lots of other events that are thrown in you've no idea about, but you actually enjoy because it's a complete and utter mystery, you know. But everybody else seems to know about it apart from me. So
Nothing new there.
I love that kind of thing. We used to have when we used to come when I was playing, that all the staff, rather than serve us food, would be bringing all their memorabilia to get signed. So we were very hungry, but all the staff were very happy because they got lots of autographs. And then at the time, this was before camera phones and all the other technology that's available now for selfies. So love coming here. It's always entertaining.
So, Sean, you're a big United fan, as I'm sure you won't mind admitting. Did you get the chance to see the likes of Chocky and his colleagues back in the day when he came over here to play in Ireland, or were you? I mean, what were your memories of watching that United team, that great United team of the mid-90s that Brian would grace with his presence?
Yeah, I'm glad of the wee WhatsApp poster was sent to me, because I wouldn't have a fucking clue it was Brian McClure. And I think he's grown that beard since 1994, since that Dundalk game as well. But season ticket holder at Old Trafford. Ironically, I think the only game I got when I was sort of mid-90s or early 90s, I remember going to, ironically, my mum and dad took us to Bloomfield Road in Blackpool for like a pre-season game.
Brian probably doesn't remember that one.
It is a big one. It's the highlight of your career, maybe.
Bloomfield Road?
Yeah, pre-season.
No idea who you're on.
My mum and my older brother went to Dancing on Ice, and my dad and I went to Bloomfield Road to watch Man United in around 93 or 94. Ironically, after the game, we waited after, and the United team were coming out, and I still have the pictures of these brilliant pictures of myself and Lee Sharp and Alex Ferguson and Clayton Blackmore, Paul Parker. I haven't got one of this fucker, so he must have walked on.
I think I might have been at the ice thing.
Well, we can't talk about United in the glory days without talking about the present day, can we, Mark, really?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's been another pig's ear of a season for United, Brian. What's gone wrong? Is it just simply a case of blaming the owners, or how do you see it? Because you worked inside that club for 15 odd years, not just as a player, but of course as a development coach.
No, you can't. I mean, it's always it's an easy target to blame the people who own the football club. I mean, first of all, they have no real interest in soccer. It's a cash cow to them. However, they have invested a lot of money. The biggest problem they've had since Alex Ferguson and David Gill left is that the recruitment below the Glazers, that's the people in charge, Ed Woodward over the last period of time, and whoever Ed Woodward has employed to do various different jobs, recruitment is the most important part in any business. And Manchester United's recruitment for 9 years has been shite. and that's not to say that it's dysfunctional because there's a collection of players in our squad paid an awful lot of money for who they just don't fit together into a team or a squad. I was doing some reading about the teams that he played for and the manager he played in, and it was the same things that he was talking about that Alex Ferguson spoke about. Basic principles of, first of all, relationships between the manager and players and the manager and staff and things. And there was 3 things that Ferguson was very keen on: trust, loyalty, and respect. Now, it didn't mean at any point of that you had to like anyone. There's not many players that I played with that I liked that much, but I respected.
Name names.
Nearly all of them. However, you respected, you knew that you played with them and they'd do a job in training and they would do the kind of same kind of job and be supportive. And if it kicked off, which once or twice it did kick off, then they would beat your shoulder. And Alex Ferguson used to hammer that through, and I don't see that ever happening the way it is. It's all, everybody at the moment, and then you decide who you're going to bring in. So you brought in the Ralph, right, who's apparently invented some press. It could be a complete and utter made-up word from what I can see. And I know that after 3 weeks, the people, some of the people who are smoke and mirror people who are still there, have realised that Ralph is actually better at smoke and mirrors than they were. And they should have got that right away when they said, okay, I'll take over for that period of time, but I want another 2 years. They should have went, hold on, this is Manchester United. We're offering you the opportunity to be the interim manager. Because Michael Carrick was the interim manager. So he was an interim manager, and he just said, take the job on this, not give him another 2 years. That's allowed him, in that period of time, to tell everybody that, without naming names, that everybody at the club are shite. So if you listen to what he said, that's exactly what he said in every single press conference. And he's going, well, it's nothing to do with me. I've only come in here and I'll take my 5 days. And by the way, I've got another fucking job. I'm going to destroy Austria. So we're in a fucking proper mess. The only thing I can say that for me is that there was a mention a few weeks ago that Alex Ferguson quote, if you lose discipline, you're fucked. And I think that's been clear. You can't have 2-year players taking that football strip off that lots of you invested. Some of you invested in other clubs as well. They're not quite as good as Manchester United. Anyway, you can't have 2-year players giving their fucking strips to fans of the opposition, like Rashford and Lingard did at the Emirates last week against Arsenal. That's about discipline. They don't seem to understand, and their academy kids, and I'm embarrassed being involved with them, that they don't understand about the discipline and what it means to people who work very, very hard to buy merchandise, to buy season tickets, and to be able to go and say, well, they actually care. And I don't think there's anybody there that can do what Alex Ferguson did with regards to caring about the football club. You have to earn the right to wear that shirt. You just can't fucking give it away.
As far as I would totally agree with most of, or all of what Brian said, particularly the shite bits. But the one word you used there, and I would agree, like Ferguson, the discipline and whatnot that he instilled in that United squad, and the culture of keeping the head down, and I presume Giggs did that most of the time when he was playing, but maybe not in latter years. But I always wondered the money thing, because anyone a lot of the guys in the room, Brian, would be GA, and obviously we're amateurs with train like lunatics. Jim on the pitch but at the same time, we're working in Tesco's, we're working in hospitals, we're working in accountancy practices, still being called a bollocks on a Saturday or Sunday for playing useless. But I always wondered, you know, what we do it surely for the pride of your next door neighbour, your cousin, your family, your dad, your grandfather. I always wondered, and when you get to someone like United, is it a commercial drive then? Does your sort of head flip into I'm doing this for money, or is it I'm doing this still for the pride of my family? You know, I'm going to meet someone at the shop, I'm going to meet somebody at a church, and they're going to, you know, I have to play for that pride.
I think it's a fantastic point you made there, and I think clearly now you can see that. So I just mentioned there that for me, that brought up the players who came through the academy, like Lingard and Rashford, is that you instill the same principles in them, and exactly on those basis. You go out onto the football pitch and they do the very, very best you can. You might still not play very well, you've no influence over the results sometimes, but if you can walk off that pitch and look your beloved in the eye and say, when they've asked you, how'd you go on today? So, well, actually, I wasn't that good, but I did my best. That's all that people want to be able to see, and there's not enough of that. And there isn't anyone there, in my view, that can keep reminding you have to keep reminding people of these week in, month in, year in, that these are the important things. There is no one there that can do that, because everybody's looking for their own little bit of what can I do, what's my job. There isn't, from what I can see, there's nobody to turn around and say, you do not take that shirt off and give it to someone else. I'd like to think that if somebody would be telling Ten Hag, look, you need to go back to the basic things, not to do with the football, but to do with the principles of what's important, not just to Manchester United, but to clubs who have a history. Liverpool, Manchester United, not the other Manchester team. They might have a history eventually, but have that idea of what's important. And it's important that you represent the history, the culture, the principles of that football club. And I don't see anyone there at the moment who can do that. And that for me would be key to any improvement in Manchester United over the next coming years. I think that the coach coming in is set up for a fall. Hopefully that he'll do the best. He will do the best he possibly can, but that's critical to me, to have someone to be able to turn around and take that away from Ten Hag, who won't know, somebody who understands those things, to say, here's how it is. Nobody's giving away their strip to anyone until you earn it, and if you do it, we're going to fine you, and we'll fine you heavily. We're going to go back to little things that can be important, like when you come off the bus, you look as if you're going to go to work, not as if you're going to go to some silent disco.
But in your mindset, just and not the labour, in the mindset, like, do you actually care? Like, it looks as if the Man United players of today don't give a shite whether they lose a game of football or not, because Lingard's going to make a dance video or a TikTok video that evening, and Rashford's going to get his hair dyed. Do you lose track of actually, I'm playing here for the people that's important to me, or is it I've got 150 grand dropping into the bank every week? I don't really give a shit.
And the rest.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Sean, that someone has to be there in the background reminding them all the time that they're only getting that if you do these things, and if you don't do it, you're not getting it, or you're going to be out the door. So somebody said, someone, not the coach, someone else there that represents all those things you just said. Here are the rules, here is the history, here is what is expected of a Manchester United player. And that's gone. If you transgress, it won't be the coach that brings you in and gives you a kick in the arse. It will be that particular person. and he'll be left under no doubt of what happened. So I like a story of going back a number of years ago with Fabrizio Ravanelli, who's playing for Juventus in Italy. And they're playing in the European Cup final, and he scores a goal in the European Cup final. And Juventus drew the game, but they won the European Cup on penalties. Ravanelli got substituted by the coach Lippi, and when he came off the pitch, he took his strip off and he kind of threw it on the ground. And so anyway, they won the game. A day or 2 days later, the general manager, Moggi, who's turned out to be a crook, there's a programme about Juventus on Netflix or something like that you can see.
Allegedly.
Anyway, this guy Moggi, he was this person I'm talking about.
John Delaney of Italy.
Yeah. And Moggi told Ravanelli to be at his office at 8 o'clock in the morning. 2 days later, got him in the office and he said, no one disrespects this shirt. That shirt has been part of this history of this football club for 100 years. Nobody disrespects for it. You will never play for Juventus again. And he sold them that day. He sold them that day and told them, you don't play for this team again. And not just that, you're going to play in Middlesbrough.
I mean, we could go on about United all night. I'm sure a lot of you don't want to, but I'm just thinking, new managers come in. As United ex-player, as a fan, have you got much hope that things might change?
As a fan, you think?
Well, as a fan, and as both fans. But I mean, Sean, do you think things are going to change under Ten Hag? Or is it going to just be a case of another 200 million quid spent, and then we're going to be in exactly the same position?
If Mickey Hart can do what he's doing with Louth, anything is possible.
We're going to get on to Mickey Hart in a minute, so so keep your powder dry.
But that's what Sean just is talking about, someone who has done this time and time again in Gaelic football. He's done it, and he's done it at a junior level, through 21s, to senior level. And he knows exactly what he's doing and being successful. He knows, and I'm sure he takes all those things about culture, all those things about hard work, all those things about discipline, and he makes the demands that need to be made. I'm not sure that Ten Hag is going to have enough things around about him to be, depending on what you might think about success. If I was Ten Hag and I was talking to Richard Arnold, who's now the chief executive, I would be telling him, I think I can keep your club in the Premier League. Not qualify for the Champions League, not qualify for the small cup, not qualify for the egg cup. Just stay in, and I might get you to a cup final, and maybe we'll try and win it this time. That's what I would be saying to him. That's what I'd be telling them. Otherwise, I'm not coming. And I think that's where we're at. And you have to then, from that point, hopefully build and build and build. And it could take a number of years. Hopefully, not as many years as Liverpool had to endure.
I think the point that Brian made earlier about the connection between a manager and the club supporters is vitally important, because, and even in GA there would be there'd be certain expectations of a county that you have to play in a way that's true to the people that live in that county and from that area. The likes of Kerry, the bastards, always have the best forwards and play the most beautiful football and a lovely kicking game. But that suits them. And I think for Man United, they've lost that connection between the hard-working people probably of the city. I know it's getting a wee bit sort of sexy to living around Manchester now, but the disconnect between Marcus Rashford getting paid 200 grand a week and feeding half a Russia or something.
Don't mention Russia again. Yeah, you're on dangerous ground there.
I thought it was vogue to do that just at the moment. But yeah, look, you're always looking at connection. You can see what Klopp has got in and done with Liverpool and Pep with City. They're so hard working that then when you're in the stands, there's an energy flowing through the stadium that you feel, fuck, there's something happening here. And you're looking at United and you're thinking, these bunch of lazy bastards don't want to run for this team, and they're getting paid the craziest money.
Well, let's get a view of an Evertonian on that note.
Well, we're not going to talk about Everton for a second, but just you mentioned about Manchester being sexy, and of course it doesn't really help Manchester United that their problems are exacerbated by what's going on across the other side of the city in Manchester City. What do you both make of the so-called friendly rivalry between the two sets of players? Because obviously you've got Manchester City who are waltzing away to who knows however many trophies at the minute. United are languishing, not to emphasise the point there. But how do you feel about all the hugging and the backslapping between the players? Obviously you're from a different generation where United were on top and there was still that animosity on the field. And in GAA, I mean, I'm no expert, but Christ, you guys really go at it. How does that sit with both of you to see two sets of players so friendly with each other in such a big rivalry in soccer?
It fucks me off, to be honest. No, look, and it said about Mickey Hart earlier. Like Mickey Hart, and I talk about this. I have a book. I don't know why it's still on sale, but I did a book a few years ago.
You didn't bring any with you.
But a lot of the stories and memories that I had was like. Mickey was a great man. Mickey Hart's a great man at convincing us in the change room that we had to hate everyone around us. Everyone hated us, and we were fucking delighted with that. But at the same time, our mindset always was, if we played Donegal, Mickey Murphy, who's the best player in Donegal, Sean, you have to go toe-to-toe with him. And that meant me having to grapple with him, put him in a headlock. He put me in a headlock. The crack was good. I call him a fat bollocks. He called me a Tyrone bollocks. And that's true, actually. But off the pitch, we got on well. And we would have met up and played for Ireland and Ulster and had so much respect. But in those 70 minutes and in that heat of a battle, we properly hated one another. So the whole concept of changing your shirts at half time, walking in the tunnel, like there's a tunnel in Ballybuffet, and I think a few shirts were changed, but it's probably because they're ripped off the backs of us more so, and there's blood down them. So yeah, this whole culture of sport in essence, I think the one thing that is always demanded or should be demanded is passion and emotion and competitiveness, and whenever you lose that, you've got very little.
Brian. Brian, you famously started a 20-man brawl at Old Trafford with Nigel Winterburn, a guest of our podcast, which, if you haven't listened to in the past, by the way, is available on all good podcast outlets. Do you look at modern football today and think, what the fuck's going on there?
Yeah, it drives me mad. I mean, I'm pissed off before they've got out of the fucking tunnel. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, is that your brother-in-law? Is that your best mate? I'm thinking, I'm trying to work out what the relationships can possibly be. The worst are the fucking goalkeepers. Fucking cuddling each other all the time. They've got gloves on for a reason. And for me, I feel deflated when I'm watching the football teams coming out, thinking it shouldn't be like that. When we went into the tunnel, and I've played against, similar to what Sean said, friends who are still friends now, and I would quite happily kick them. And I would be quite happy if they kicked me back, because I knew that at some point, if not after the game, at certain time in the future, we'd still be friends and understand that that's what we had to do, because he was wearing one colour of shirt and I was wearing another colour of shirt, and the game meant something too. He's trying to win and I'm trying to win. Again, if I was the one who was saying this is what should happen, I would be stopping all of that. You look straight ahead, and unless you look into the side, it's the situation with Roy Keane where you're telling somebody, I'm going to rip your fucking head off
and shit down your neck,
and then you go to the pitch and you just go and do your job, At the end of the game, shake hands, yeah, that's fine. And then you go into the tunnel, go to the dressing room. And I do think that Manchester United are now in a situation where none of the players have earned the right to swap their shirt. They've not even earned the right to swap their fucking underpants.
Were you playing the night United went to Galatasaray?
No, I wasn't playing, no.
I remember seeing that. That seemed like a friendly atmosphere. You might have changed a few shirts.
No, I was there the second time, which is just as bad, yeah.
I'm conscious I don't want to make this about United, but I'm just thinking, we both watched the games today, Liverpool beating Newcastle City. Last I heard, 1-4-0, was it? How long do you see this domination of United's greatest rivals going on for? I mean, is this...
What domination?
Well, United...
We're talking about Liverpool and
Liverpool and City. Yeah.
Can't see... See, they keep moving forward, don't they? And Manchester United finished second last year, yet we're nowhere near that. I mean, it was such a slide back from second. It's incredible, and because they're well run, well oiled, well efficient machines, they continue to move and move forward. So, and you've still got. We'll be interested to see what happens with Chelsea because of other circumstances. But Manchester United have got a hell of a lot of catching up to do. However, Manchester City will win the league.
Do you, you obviously get it in the neck. You were saying to me earlier that you're out in Liverpool now and again. You've obviously got mates on both sides. You dreading. I mean, what's the perfect outcome from a United fan point of view this season?
I don't know. That Klopp and Guardiola fucks off somewhere out of the road. You know what? It's demoralising from a Man United perspective, but the one hope you have in soccer, and going back to the sort of money thing, is that United has the commercial money, and you're kind of hoping that they'll get rid of 10 or 15 men and bring in 10 or 15 men, and you can do a complete overhaul. You know, that's different in GA. Obviously, if you're stuck with a crap group of players, you're fucked. Like, but in soccer, you can. In soccer, you can change it quite quickly and pay the big wages and bring the best in. So, yeah, hopefully United will be able to pull that off.
I mean, again, not wanting to make it too much about United, so I was going to say to you, Brian, it's looking pretty good for Celtic, isn't it? 24 hours. Do you want me to ask that question in 24 hours' time?
Well, I mean, for me, watching Celtic all this year, and they've done remarkably well, is that they've got a manager that would probably do really well at Manchester United.
Yeah. Well, you I spoke to you about this before the start of the season, and nobody really fancied Ange at all, did they? And it looked like he might get the chop by Christmas, and now he's proved everybody wrong. And is that just belief in getting the right guy? You said about recruitment, get the right guy for the right job, and
right recruitment. I mean, his recruitment has been wonderful and very successful, and he has an idea of where he wants the team to play, which is very much a Celtic way of attacking football. They'll score more goals than the opponents, and you got to applaud that. He doesn't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. He's only part of that kind of thing, like we were talking about. He's created a siege mentality where it's all about what happens in Celtic and in that dressing room, and not bothered about what happens outside it. And time and time again, that will be proven to be a successful recipe for success in team sport. Yeah, and I'm sure that's what Sean's just mentioned, that they hated them, and they revelled in being hated back, and that's the way it is. I mean, because usually when you're hated back, is that because you're actually quite successful. It's not just about tribal and borders and different things. Sometimes it's to do with you're the best team. So at the moment, the envy and bitterness will be towards the best teams, and the best teams at the moment are City and Liverpool.
Sean, we know all about the big personalities in soccer, whether it be players, managers, pundits, for example, Sir Alex Ferguson or a certain Mr. Roy Keane. But do you have similarly controversial people within the GAA world. I mean, I believe there's one TV pundit in particular who you've had one or two run-ins with in the past.
Joan Cantwell's not so bad. I kind of miss Brawley, like an absolute mad bastard is probably the best way of putting him, but a lovable mad bastard at the same time. You know what? That's what makes it interesting. Like, why is Roy Keane so interesting to watch? Because he just doesn't give a shit what he says. He does not care, and he'll call bullshit time and time again. And that's so different to use English. So whenever you're sitting beside a Joe Brawley and he's got that sort of colourful way of speaking about the game, and he'll go on a complete rant, and it's usually driven by lunacy. It's still interesting. It's still entertainment. I actually do. Like, I genuinely do miss Joe. Joe was someone, obviously, give myself a bit of heat when I was playing, and I really wanted to fucking kick the shit out of him, and I still do probably. But at the same time, he landed the All-Ireland final in 2019. Dublin were playing Kerry, and I landed into the RTE box. I was on the night show in GA. There's obviously the day of the game, and then they'll do like a review show in the evening. So I was on the night show with a few guys, and I landed in, and the All-Ireland final typically is the highest in terms of audience of the year. There might be 1 million people in Ireland watching this one game. I land in around 1:30. The game's kicking off at 3. I think the guys are on air maybe at 1:45. Of course, I sort of behaved myself the night before. I'm on the night show. I'm thinking, I need to watch this game with a bit of interest and analysis. Joe comes down the corridor of the coming into the box. Bottle of beer in hand, and that's not even a joke. And I looked at him and goes, "Jesus, Joe, you're on the show here and starting in 20 minutes." And he was like, "Aye, no, look here, look. I was good last night. I went and got a Chinese at about 10, and I didn't bother going on any spirits. I stuck on the beer from 10 to 4, and I left Mulligan's. At 4 in the morning, and this wee bottle just to get me back up again." And that was someone got on to the peak TV show of an All-Ireland final. Absolutely brilliant. I loved the attitude, and it was just the colour and personality that went with that. And I think as much as he abused people, and there was a wrongness at times with that, I think there's definitely room for those sorts of people that have that artistic brilliance. And I think of Man United, that sort of mid-90s, and he probably tucked Brian's shirt every now and again. But Cantona coming into United just changed that whole dynamic of a team, and obviously Ferguson could see that. Explain.
But before he does, because I think we're going to talk about Eric later, I just wanted to ask you, you were involved in a game a few years back now that was 20 yellow cards, 6 red cards back in 2018. I mean, I'm sure you remember it. I mean, Brian, you obviously, we said you cause the odd ruckus now and again, but have you ever looked at soccer and thought that's just a load of handbags, that compared to what you got involved with? Not you personally, but I mean GAA. And like the county stuff, the stuff you see is the mellow stuff. It's whenever you're going to Strabane on a Sunday evening, and you're driving into an estate that's an IRA den, really, and you're maybe leading by a couple of points, and with a few minutes to go, and a field fight kicks off, and there's guys sort of jumping the fence, and you're genuinely not sure of your own safety. You're thinking, am I getting out of Strabane this evening? But you know what?
it's part of that madness. It's also part of what we love. Like I was fortunate enough to play for Ireland in the national rules. So Ireland play Australia. It used to be every year, and in a hybrid rules game. And the first 5 or 6 years that I played, there was 82,000 people in Croke Park watching this game. Kids from everywhere, absolutely buzzing. And then they changed the rules. The Australians kicked the absolute shite out of us in 2006, and they changed the rules so that if any Australian got sent off, then they couldn't play in their own game, which was costing them money then at that point. And then whenever I played the next year, nobody fucking come. So part of that tells me as well that you have to have that sort of physicality, and you have to have a good row really epitomises how much it means to players and how competitive those players are really going. Without that, with the players sort of hugging one another and whatnot, you're losing so much that everyone wants to see when they go to see a game of sport.
I don't remember you hugging too many people, Brian, on the opposition team. Anyway, I mean, you weren't one for swapping shirts and high fiving and
Swapping shirts?
Yeah, not if you had to pay for them, anyway.
Well, we weren't allowed to swap shirts for a start.
You only had one. You had one to last the whole season, or something stupid.
Yeah, the same shirt. Well, it's roughly the same shirt all season. Yeah. The first pre-season playing a game in Belfast against a Northern Ireland select team, we drew 0-0, and I thought we'd done quite well. And this lad came up at the end of the game and says, "I'm a big Man United fan, can I have your shirt?" And occasionally when I was at Celtic you were allowed to swap shirts, but I just said, "Yeah, you can have my shirt." I came into the dressing room at the end of the game with the shirt over my shoulder, and there was a big long dressing room in Windsor Park, and Alex Ferguson came in, and he first of all had realised he wasn't best pleased because when he slammed the door it nearly splintered and came off its hinges. I'm still kind of oblivious to this, and they'd played a few games earlier, but he just was purple with rage, and he went round every player and he gave them a proper hairdryer, as it became to be known. And he got to me and he just told me how shit he thought I was, and I'm like, "That's fucking pre-season, what the fuck are you on about? Fucking hell, we've done alright here, what the fuck's this guy gonna..." He's raging, and then he notices that I'm the only person that hasn't got a red shirt on. So he pauses for a breath, and then he re-energises and says, "Where the fuck is your shirt?" And I went, "Swapped it." Well, that was him. He went from 1 up to fucking 99. And he launches back into me. "Who the fuck do you think you are? Whatever you done, you've done fuck all in football. You're fucking rubbish. If you ever you'll be out here as quick as you've got in. You're fucking useless bastard." And I was like, I think I've made the wrong decision here. Anyway, he stopped, and then he went on to the person next to me, much to my relief. And then he finishes off and he gets in, he's still steaming. And then I make the fucking crucial error, for my regards, that I've already had my first proper and probably potentially the worst hairdryer from him, that I'll just try and clarify the situation, So, and nobody told me not to say anything, so I just kind of put my hand up, And he turns on, he's fucking staring at me like, what the fuck is it? I went, "Do you want me to go and ask for it back?" However, I thought he thought I was taking the piss, right? So he turned around and goes, "Fuck off, you stupid bastard." Never again did I put my hand up.
Or swap a shirt. I mean, that takes me on nicely to something I wanted to ask you about, Sean, particularly the great Mick Hart, who was a Tyrone manager for 18 years, 3 All-Ireland titles, the kind of character that I think, well, from an outsider, would you compare him to Alex Ferguson, the GAA world?
I'm struggling to tell the truth.
Don't worry, he's not in.
I'm still in touch with Alex Ferguson. I tell loads of stories about him, so get on with it.
It's not what you said earlier on, but just out of interest, we turned up at the Glide-In earlier, and Brian was early, and we were saying, he said how punctual he always is, and he says, "I'm punctual because I worked for that fucking nutcase for 25 years. If I'm late by 2 minutes, he'd have crucified me." So,
Okay, look. The easy way to put this is, Brian mentioned earlier that you don't have to get on with everyone to perform with people, and genuinely, I haven't spoken to Mickey Hart since the day I took off my last Tyrone jersey, but for someone who drives standards and who always expects the best of everything and every time that you train, every time you go to the gym, every time, he's an amazing person at bringing a group of people together to get the best out of them, because when you're in that bubble that players often talk about, you totally believe with Mickey that there's nothing else that matters and nothing else can matter. You live and breathe. He's a great way of almost brainwashing you that your life, whenever you are in that team, has to go on hold. Everything must be sacrificed, and performance is everything, and getting the best out of this team is everything. And that's what he was brilliant at. The standards. Which at times you didn't see it as that because you were in just trying to get better week in, week out. When you stepped away, I then begun to realise that's what, he wasn't friendly with a lot of players. He wasn't. He didn't have personal relationships. He wasn't someone who wanted to drink coffee with or a beer with or whatever. But at the same time, we had that mutual respect that he was doing everything for the common goal, which was to win an All-Ireland title every year. And yeah, look, there's a lot of similarities as a lifelong Man United supporter, and you hear a lot of the guys that played in the 90s in particular talking about Ferguson and the sort of the standards and how he demanded and how he controlled a lot of players' lives even outside of the game. That's what Mickey Hart did, and he was brilliant at it, and that's why the standards of Tyrone football went up, and that's why the standards of Louth football are now going up.
well, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, what a profound effect he's had on Louth since moving on. I mean, again, taking those same values into another club makes you wonder what he could do if he came back to United, Brian, doesn't it? Not Mickey Hart, Alex Ferguson. Well,
you couldn't afford him. You couldn't afford him. Only Louth could afford him.
But I mean, was he capable of the hairdryer in his? Was Mickey Hart capable of a hairdryer, or was he one of those that would just give you a look and make you feel like you know?
Oh fuck, he's an angry man. Like a very angry man. Yeah, look, a man that just. You knew when he was angry, you knew about it. He might not have directly given the hairdryer that Brian talked about earlier, but at the same time, that was replaced to you're coming off, and he didn't speak to you for fucking 3 weeks, and you kind of knew that things weren't going to plan. So it was that sort of relationship that no one would ever have questioned his judgment. Put it like that.
You're still scarred by Fergie, aren't you?
Still scarred.
Well, mentally.
Every time I see him, I get his scars coming out.
But
yeah,
you were one of his favourites, though, which makes it even more perplexing as to why you would, despite the fact you took the piss regularly by your own admission, but he's admitted that you were one of his favourites.
Yeah, and I think that part of that punishment was to keep me in employment for 25 years. So that the lunchtime table that he could turn around and say that was my fault we lost the League Cup final in 1992, 91. 91, you know, like 17 years after the event, because he was having a bad day. But overall, no, I think that, that there was a certain time that I might have been sort of kind of favourite for. I have no idea why, but some kind of favourite. But I was nowhere near as clear a favourite as Monsieur Cantona. He was like, Eric could get away with, and did get away with, fucking murder.
Well, speaking of getting away with it, I don't know if anybody here has heard the story of, obviously, the famous kung fu kick in Crystal Palace and how Fergie disciplined him, shall we say, or failed to?
Sean asked the question there about Cantona and what difference did he make to the team. Explain. Well, for me, Eric was very quiet in the dressing room, but I knew that he was listening to everything that was going on, absorbing everything that was going on, and every now and then he would make a comment about things. But his work ethic and training was wonderful to see, and he was a game changer. You know, he did things on the football pitch that none of the rest of us were capable of, but we were capable of being part of it, and that's why we started to be probably, that was the kind of thing that changed us from being a good team to a very good team. But I liked the way they used to look around the dressing rooms. They'd take things in, they'd listen to all the banter. He wouldn't really get involved in all that kind of thing. But I remember asking him one day, because I was kind of being mischievous, and I said to him, I don't know where don't ask me where this question comes from, but I did ask him one day, I says about Gary Pallister, who was a neighbour of mine. I says, Eric, can I ask you a question? And he said, oui. I says, Gary Pallister. I says, in case you don't
Was he from Coatbridge?
In case you don't, he's Welsh, wasn't he? If you don't recognise him, he's the big, tall lad that sits a couple of seats away from you that's always playing with his pubic hair. Oui. Yeah, I think I know who the guy is. I said, do you think that Gary Pallister, Pally, has ever satisfied a woman in a sexual way? And he looked at me and he paused and he went, no.
So profound.
That was the brilliance of the man.
Were there players, I mean, I'm going to say don't name names, but that's why we're here. Were there players that struggled with his tantrums and his hairdryer? I mean, you obviously were his favourite.
I suppose it's like the same way any kind of manager. I read a kind of thing today about Mickey where he learned how to deal with players by his experiences as a teacher and teaching through. Alex Ferguson was a brilliant pavement psychologist. He learned stuff all the way through how to deal with players, how to understand what they needed and who he could give a very much of a bollocking at the end of the game and make it up to them quite soon after, because Gordon Strachan used to talk about, and you'll hear it an awful lot, and certainly in soccer, I'm not sure, it might be the same in any kind of sport, team sport. Well, that's it. He's fucked now. They've lost the dressing room. Gordon Strachan used to say that Alex Ferguson lost the dressing room after every fucking game. But by the Monday, you were ready to go to war for him again. And that's what it was like. You'd be like, fuck that, I'm never playing again, you know. Brilliant at being able to understand. And the reason he'd do it after the game, because he wanted to get it out of the way and vent his spleen, lose all his anger, lose all his frustration, whether it had been a win, whether it had been a draw, whether it had been a defeat, get it out of the way so that he could go home and be fairly normal for the Saturday night and the Sunday. because his missus had told him, no way you're ever fucking coming home in that kind of fucking mood ever again. You just tell those wankers that are playing. Don't be taking it on me. So, but he was brilliant at man management.
Fair enough. Well, look, we're getting towards the end of our hour, and we're happy to take some questions. I'll come out in a minute with the microphone if you want to put your hands up. Anything you
well, yeah, just before we do, we want some quick predictions from you about what's happening at the end of the season here. So we'll ask you both, who do you think is going to win the Premier League?
I'm just biased completely and utterly. I don't want anybody to win it. Fair enough. But I don't want Liverpool to win 20. In fact, I don't want Liverpool to win anything. So I'll go for Manchester City.
Sean?
Yeah, hoping for a Russian invasion of England, and maybe just
after tonight, that might not be far off.
But feeling that, yeah, City are fucking unbelievable.
Yeah. And what about All Ireland? Who are we going to have a few Euros on?
Loud until Tyrone sends down Martin Sludden to sort them all out. But feeling that, Tyrone or Kerry.
Champions League?
Real Madrid.
I forgot they were still in it, to be honest. Everyone's talking about City and Liverpool. I forgot they were still in it.
City.
Yeah.
They're fucking too good. Pep's eventually going to get the Champions League at some point.
You think? Okay. Well, you heard it here first. So, listen, we're ready to take some questions. If anyone's willing to, I'll have to get up from my stool. You can ask the lads anything you want, and I'll come. I'll start at the front. I'll start at the back. Hang on, this gentleman here.
It's a question for Brian. Being a fan of the Man United in the 90s and 80s, who was your favourite player to assist you? Because I remember Lee Sharp being the golden child, and then Ryan Giggs kind of taking his place. But for me, Lee Sharp was the better assister. But who was your favourite assister in the Man United team?
Are you talking about playing football or something else?
Tell us about the non-football first.
Yeah, come on, we've only got 15 minutes.
Sharpie, for me, was he knew what he was going to do. Run past the fullback, cross the ball in, and he just had to be there at the right time. So I would say for me that Lee Sharp was, in use your words, a better assister than...
Who was the better assister of each other out of those two?
That's a bit of a pun, that, isn't it, really?
You might have to ask Danny Bear that question.
I know the answer. I'm coming to the back here. Excuse me. Sorry, ladies. This gentleman here.
I have two questions, both for Sean.
No, you're not allowed two questions. It's one.
All right, Brian.
Question.
Okay.
A man's got a Lee Sharp jersey on right this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm not even joking.
Both for Sean. First one is...
No, you can only have one. How difficult is that to understand?
Can I roll the two into one? Sean, first one, tell us a little bit about Muggsy. Apparently he was a bit of a legend, was he?
Yeah. About 3 weeks out from an All-Ireland final, I can remember being out after. We must have played an All-Ireland semi-final, and we won. Obviously, we had a final in a few weeks' time, and I remember being out in Cookstown in a place in the Glenavon as a nightclub, and crack was good, freaking great night out. Whatever happened, some sort of a scuffle or altercation involving a girl, inevitably with Muggsy. And yeah, I remember going out into the car park, and Muggsy was coming into the car park with a paint scraper and a bottle of beer. That's Muggsy. The maddest man you'll ever meet on a night out, but at the same time, one of the most brilliant Gaelic footballers in terms of artistic intelligence. Don't rely on him to turn up every day, but when he turns up, he was friggin' amazing.
Second one is, how does it feel to have an actual discipline or a rule based on yourself?
What would that be?
The black card. The black card.
Do we need to ask Joe?
That's a common myth. That's like a fucking leprechaun of Ireland or something. Like, forget about that.
Right, we've got time for a couple more. I think there's one over there somewhere, which I'm going to save till the end. Go on.
This is a question for Brian. I just want to know, where did Chalky come from?
Where did Chalky come from? I'll tell you the story about where it. I was at Glasgow Celtic. We were playing in Switzerland pre-season, roasting hot day. We were playing against Basel, or Bâle as they're now called. And they used to have a great big terrace behind the goals, and I'm telling you, it was about fucking 90 degrees in the shade, and you could hear these two guys both singing the Celtic song, and they end up coming over the terrace, and as they come over the terrace, and at the top of this terrace, and they shout down, "On you go, the chocolate McClare." And Tommy Burns, who was very witty and very clever, thought, "You're fucking having that, that's your nickname." Because he thought it would annoy me, you know. And like, yeah, fucking. So he's calling me chocolate all the time, and eventually got a part of the thing shot him to Chalky, CHOCCY. Now it's from chocolate McClare, chocolate Eclair, a sweet in the UK.
This is some fucking story.
I bet you wish you'd never asked this question, Harry.
But some fucking idiots in England would hear it Chalky and think it was CHALKY, which is actually a bit of a racist fucking name. And they'd ask me that, well, how come why is he called Chalky? What? Well, it's after chalk. What fucking chalk are you on about? CHOCCY, chocolate. Fucking hell, yeah, I get it now. Quite simple, really.
There you go. I'm going to head over to these guys because they asked me a question earlier on, but anything quick? Anyone? No?
There's one at the back there as well. There's one in the back corner.
Nev, you got a question?
Just one for Sean there.
You might go for a piss.
Of course.
No, get back. Get back here.
We would never restrict something like that. Jesus. Sean, just one for you. You mentioned earlier you had a Man United season ticket. Do you still have it, or did you jump ship like the rest of the rats?
Half price.
Good night.
Man United Europa League season ticket going in the raffle earlier or later. Get your €20 in there, Kelly.
Do you want to? Yeah. I think we got one for Brian, and I think this will be the last one.
Obviously, you played for Man United versus Crystal Palace. You alluded to earlier on about the Kung Fu kick. What was the team's reaction and Alex Ferguson's reaction after that?
Yeah, I think you know this one, Brian, don't you?
Yeah. I didn't see the incident live, but I knew there was some kind of thing had happened outside of the pitch because there was a bit of commotion, and Peter Schmeichel had run out his goals and whatever else. There's a bit of commotion anyway. We're more interested in continuing the game because he fucking got sent off, so he's no fucking used to us, right? So 1-0 down, I just want to go on with the game, and I'm not asked about that. So at the end of the game, the substitute goalkeeper went, Gary Walsh said, "Fucking, you won't believe that, Chalky." He says, Eric Kung Fu, the guy in the crowd, and I'm like, Walshy, I did physics at university. That's not fucking impossible. That defies the laws of the universe. He can't be fucking kung fuing somebody 3 feet above the pitch and be back on the pitch by the time I've turned round. And I'm not the quickest, but my head can turn quite quickly. I'm fucking telling you, he's kung fu'd somebody. I'm fucking no chance. So we get back to it, and then everybody's saying the same similar thing. I'm thinking, so we're all of that. Right? Well, he's never had a hairdryer, he's never had a fucking bollock, he's never had a bad word. This is it. He's got to get fucking... What is he going to get now? I've got fucking 2 hairdryers for giving away my strip. He's fucking kung fu'd somebody in the crowd. Now, I've often thought about fucking shouting back at somebody in the crowd, but at no point have I ever thought of fucking kicking somebody or punching somebody, right? So I'm like, he's got to, this is, wow, can't wait. Doesn't matter what he's going to say to the rest of us. This is going to be the fucking bollocking of history of Alex Ferguson. And he doesn't disappoint the way he comes into the dressing room. He slams the door so hard again, you think it's going to come off his hinges, and he fucking launches into everybody. And we're not asked, we're thinking, not bothered. Got to get to that fucking French twat over there. And he's just sitting in the corner, looking a wee bit, looking despondent. But we're all like that, fucking bring it on. What's he getting? He's got to be getting some. This is... I'm glad I'm fucking here now. He's getting it. He's fucking getting it. So we're all going round and we're all like, we can see each other, looking at each other, going, right, come on, fucking hurry up. No, like, nobody say anything. Don't say anything, you know, come on, go on to the next person. We're almost smiling as he's slaughtering us. And here's a moment he gets to Eric, we're like, fucking yes, see what it is. Whoa, come on, brilliant. Eric's there, his fucking shoulders are down. And there's a pause. Alex Ferguson pauses and he turns around to Eric. Fucking give him it. Go on. We're all like cheering behind him. He can't see us going, go on, give him it. You know. Eric can see us going, fucking give him it. And he goes, Eric, yes, here it comes. You can't be doing things like that, son. That was it.
And the rest is history. I think that brings our podcast show to an end. Put your hands together, please. Sean Kavanagh, Brian McClare. We're good.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? And with any luck, we'll be asked to do a few more live gigs in the future. So keep an eye on our Twitter account @BrianMcClarePod for any details of such events. In the meantime, don't forget to hit subscribe and keep listening to Life with Brian wherever you get your podcasts. And any kind reviews are greatly appreciated. Thanks for taking the time to listen. We'll be back soon.
Life with Brian, talking films or music. Life with Brian, talking TV and food. Life with Brian, talking trivia and exercise. Life with Brian is different every episode. Life with Brian, talking politics and football. Life with Brian is different every episode. Life with Brian, Life with Brian.